Hey, what's up, guys? Little man with a big opinion here. So, folding laundry and coming up with video ideas for you. And so, this one came up off the top of my head. So, I was going to go ahead and get it into a video form for you guys. Alright, so in today's video, I'm going to talk about what I am actively doing to be prepared for winter. Um, for myself, I live in the state of Texas. I lived in Corpus Christi when we had that really bad freeze a couple years ago. And the energy company that we went with was the wind turbines outside of town. Not that that made too much of a difference, but almost all of the electricity was out in the city. Um, and if it was not for me prepping, then there's a very real possibility that we would have been cuddling up underneath a bunch of blankets with our cats and our dog and, you know, just surviving on what we had in the apartment. I was still in college, and the one thing that it did do for me was it verified the things that I was doing as useful and important. It told me places where I could improve, um, and it told me places where I was lacking and what I could uh, do better in the future. So this is coming from my own personal experiences, uh, but I think the very first thing that you should have purchased is a solid sleeping bag. And you need to have a solid sleeping bag for everyone inside of your household. Um, so for us, we had three sleeping bags actually, and we let one of our friends use one of them uh, because their apartment had no electricity. He was talking to us in a group chat about how it was cold, and we helped him out. So at least for sleeping, um, he was comfortable. He was able to survive. Your sleeping bag should go between 5 and 10 degrees lower um, than the coldest, on record for your area. And me living in Northeast Texas, for the most part, that's saying, having a 15, uh, maybe even a 25-degree sleeping bag. Uh, and you should be good to go. Uh, if it's not good enough, like the power's out and it's 5 outside and you've got a 15-degree sleeping bag, uh, then wrapping yourself up in extra layers, putting a emergency blanket around your sleeping bag, you're not going to sleep comfortably, but you're also not going to freeze yourself. And having tons of these thermals to be able to layer, I think, is also pretty important. Uh, but a sleeping bag is your first go-to thing. The next thing that I would say is, to get through the winter, if you have a fireplace, then you should have wood set aside for said fireplace. Um, this year, I was fortunate enough to have a fellow teacher who was cutting down some dying pecan trees. So it's partially for firewood and it's also partially for barbecuing. Uh, but after we got it all cut up and sorted out, it came out to being uh, pretty close to a cord of wood for one massive uh, pecan tree. Uh, you know, the firewood is not just for warmth. Um, it's also light for where you're at. And it can also be what you're using to um, prepare the food that you have set aside. Uh, my first suggestion would be, eating what you have in your fridge and freezer, uh, just to make sure that food doesn't go bad. But if it's getting that cold, the food's probably not going to go that bad. Uh, I didn't have any steaks when the whole freeze was happening, uh, and I still had to go to work because I was in one of the few areas that had power. Um, and for the most part, no one was buying steaks. They were going for quick, cheap, easy food, which is understandable. And I was, you know, buying steaks and cooking them on a cast iron because you know we had our blankets. We kind of boxed off uh, the upstairs area and the kitchen, so we were just heating the living room, which that gets me into the next item that I would put on this list. And the next item is going to be like a painter's tarp or like a plastic tarp, or it could be blankets. And the reason I say that is you can hang those up and section off portions of your house. For example, we'll take you on a little walk. Where our fireplace is inside of our den. We don't have a ceiling fan up there right now, so I need to turn this light on, which that doesn't do much good at all. But I can shut this door to the hallway, and we're only heating the area with the fireplace. And then if we look back into the kitchen, we've got these nice, solid wood rafters. That far rafter, I can hang up tarps and blankets and different things like that to make it to the fireplace only has to heat probably a 10 by 20 area. Uh, so, have it heat 200 square feet instead of trying to heat up the entire, 2,200 square foot. Uh, so, being able to section off portions of your house to create like a micro um, environment is probably going to be something really, really useful. But what I will add to that, let's get that out of the way. What I will add, if you are going to use a fireplace or some sort of heating source, that you have a carbon monoxide detector. And that's just so we're being safe. We don't want to, put ourselves in more danger when we're trying to, take away one area of danger. Uh, so after that, uh, this is partially for people if you don't have a fireplace, but it's also just a good idea. The food that you're gonna have on hand, it would probably be beneficial if it was like a non-cooking food. So you've got protein bars, peanut butter and bread, or just certain meals that don't need to be cooked because that removes the chance of someone getting hurt. It removes the requirement of having a fireplace or having a camping stove, or a cooktop or anything like that. The next thing that I'd say that I'm actively doing to prep for this is I'm making sure that I have plenty of pet food. Uh, I This year we had a small issue with um, certain pet foods just not being around. We ended up switching our dog's food because their main source of food or their main brand, there was a supply issue with that, and you know we our pets are like family, so we're not just going to uh, forget about them. And that also means that they need to be in the warm area with you. Because cats, even though they have fur, dogs, even though they have fur, um, they don't like the cold. They're not going to do overly well if it is cold. So, being able to take care of them is important as well. Haven't gone as far as getting them little coats and things, um, but do know that they'll be trapped inside that room with you. For my water storage, a lot of it is stored outside in the garage, and so I've got little 1 gallon containers just kind of stored throughout the house. Um, and then the living room, we don't really have anything stored in there, but in the kitchen, we also have water storage in there. So if it got really, really cold, really, really bad, um, we would move those water containers into the area that we're in just to make sure it doesn't freeze. Uh, you're standing on my laptop. I don't want you to do that. Thank you. Uh, and then I'm also just paying attention to the weather. I'm being vigilant as always. Um, a lot of the weather apps that you can get these days. Um, they'll show you the 10 month or a 10 day pretty accurate forecast. Um, you can also know your average high and lows for each month. And if you're in a big enough city, they've gotten all the way down to, most of the time, this is when your first cold front's going to come in. Most of the time, this day is going to be the coldest day out of the year. Uh, so you can kind of give yourself a timeline of when things could get bad. And, it happens down here in Texas to us. So if you're watching this and you live, every mile you go further north, your weather is going to change. Uh, your weather preparations living in, Wisconsin are a lot different weather preparations than what I prep for. Uh, just so if it gets more extreme, then there's a little bit more that you have to put into it. But the most important part is staying warm and being able to keep yourself, you know, fed and hydrated. Um, the things that are not necessarily a requirement are going to be, backup power sources. Right now, the backup power that I have is those like 20,000 and 40,000 milliamp, rechargeable um, battery packs. Mostly good enough for the rechargeable flashlights I have and cell phones. Uh, Hopefully that's changing here soon, but uh, there's you never know. Certain expenses might pop up, but uh, I don't have anything that I need to keep refrigerated, and I don't have anything that requires electricity for my survival. So, if you've got a sleep app machine or you've got to keep medicine cold, um, then at least keep the medicine cold part, you're probably in luck. Uh, but for the sleep app machine, having a small, solar powered rechargeable system. Uh, it's going to run you several $100s, if not getting into the $1,000 range. But you do what you got to do. Uh, Basically, every prep after that point is going to come down to your comfort level. For us, we've got candles and board games, and that's what we're going to do to ride these things out and lay in bed and enjoy time with the cats and dogs. Um, some people, they may want to still be able to play their video games while they're riding out some sort of storm, and that's going to require electricity. So, what are your thoughts? Um, are there other things that you would add to this list? If so, let me know in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you enjoy what I'm doing with the channel, then subscribe. We're getting, each day I feel like we're getting a step closer to that 1,000 subscriber mark. And lastly, if you have a friend or family member that would benefit from our discussions that we have in these videos, then go ahead and share the channel with them. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.